We're now coming to the last piece of this session number 7. This is dealing with the issue of the Exodus, especially the call of Moses. We've asked the question, we've understood the information as much as we have. I don't know whether I actually did with you finding out answers to what you don't know. Maybe I'll have to do a special session on that. Because one of the things you need to do in gaining understanding the information is where there are things that you don't know. It's really good to find out, because sometimes what you don't know is more important than what you do. Sometimes the revelation factor, the encounter factor, is about what you don't know. And we're dealing with Moses, and a very good person I respect a lot and whom I love and whom I want to see restored. He's in a place of restoration now. But he was the one who said, when Moses got that revelation from God, everyone thinks this will be exciting and all that kind of thing. But he said he was probably sick and throwing up everything inside of him for 3 days just thinking about what God had said. And I think that's probably close to the truth. So I want to now take these verses and I'll just read them now. I hope that doesn't take too much time. I hope you've read this. I hope you've been working this through on your own about just getting down the revelatory pieces of information. But it says, "Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near. Take off your sandals from off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face for fear, because he was afraid to look on God. Then the Lord said to him, I have surely seen the affliction of my people Israel, who are in Egypt. I've heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I've come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now behold, the cry of the people has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? But he said, I'll be with you. And this shall be the sign for you that I've sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. I want to, just looking through this passage, I'm not going to go through it verse by verse. I've gone through the pieces of revelatory information, and I asked the question about this: what is going on here? What is this about? What is the subject matter here? What is the issue? What's the one big idea about this? Well, when I look at it and read it backwards and forwards, and I go and put something on the whiteboard, and I say, I think it might be this, and I go read it again, and I think, oh no, it's not that, it's something else. What I need to do is I need to get the big idea, because the big idea will give me an understanding of the small idea. And when I do this for this passage, and if you haven't done that, well then stop the tape, you can do it. That's a good thing about this kind of technology. Stop the tape, go do it. Go read this passage, make notes, circle things, highlight things, do whatever you need to do, but just get what the big idea is. And don't just be looking at some little part of it. And when you get an idea of the big idea, then go check it out, read it again and say, if this is the big idea will be right if it represents every part of that passage. The big idea in this passage. I'm going to give you, if you stop the tape now, if you haven't stopped it, go do that, and then turn it on again. I'll be here when you turn it on. So whether or not you've stopped the tape, I'm going on now. And my guess at the big idea is that this is about the preparation for spiritual leadership. This is about what goes on in order to make a spiritual leader capable of representing God and His purpose in a given situation. Because this is Moses, and Moses is going to be the leader. Now don't get some sort of, what do you call it, some sort of democratic idea that God doesn't like leadership, and just because you've seen bad leaders, there's no such thing as leadership, everybody leads. I mean, that's a lot of rubbish. It's much rubbish in the New Testament as it is in the Old. This is about leadership. God is choosing a leader, and because He chooses this leader, a whole bunch of issues arise that give us a kind of a roll back the curtains here on how God works leadership. And so what I've done is I've done some work on this, and so you don't just, this doesn't drop out of the sky, but this is my experience of what I think is an encounter with the living God about this. First of all, I think it's about leadership. So I think, what is it that is needed for anybody to be involved as a person representing God somewhere? And everybody is a leader somewhere. We may not all be the leaders everywhere. Now, I'm not the leader in your household. I'm not the leader in my household. I am a leader in my household. And so I have a leadership responsibility. I need to represent God. I am a leader in our congregation, and I'm a leader in a few other things. But here I want to see the analysis or the crunchy bits of genuine spiritual leadership. Leadership that can actually do the job. Because we think about leadership, we think, oh, well, leaders are born, and so God always chooses, the fancy, wonderful, capable people. And we have some wonderful leaders, wonderfully, humanly speaking, wonderful capacity to give leadership. But that is not the leadership that God has used. He didn't just choose the really clever people, the really successful people, the people who everybody knew were going to be a leader. And people can say what they like about Moses being educated in the ways of the Egyptians and all that sort of stuff, and that was why he was a leader. That is just arrogant poppycock. And I'm going to just speak about these because they're on the slides there and you can see them. I've just identified 4 issues here. I've taken this from the passage that we've got, and then I've gone looking, because the passage leads on to the next part, because in the latter part of chapter 3 and some of chapter 4, Moses is arguing with God about why he shouldn't be the leader, why God should choose somebody else. Now, there's a lot of people who've argued with God about that and won. They've said, I'm not going to be it. And they've chosen not to. The really amazing thing about Moses was that even though he didn't feel like being the leader, even though he didn't have a record of good leadership, even though he didn't think he was looking after sheep. I mean, this is amazing. He's looking after, they're not even his own sheep. He's a refugee looking after sheep for his father-in-law in the wilderness area. He's not even in the best place. And God comes to where he is and says, listen, mate, I want to take you from here to somewhere where you don't want to go. And when you get there, I want you to do something in my name to represent me. This is an amazing thing. So here are the 4 issues. The first one is self-esteem. Moses was not a person who had high self-esteem, especially not that time. 40 years of being a refugee. 40 years of being, growing up in Pharaoh's court and being a failed Israelite possible leader. 40 years in the wilderness of being a shepherd looking after his father-in-law's sheep. And now he was at the beginning of the most productive 40 years. So I reckon I'm 63 and I reckon I'm looking forward to 80. 40 years of being an arrogant little rubbishy whatever, thinking I knew everything, and then 40 years of trying to learn everything, and I'm looking for fruitful times, in the future. Because Moses, the best bit was for last. I don't know how many times I've heard that. That's the favourite prophecy. If you want to prophesy over an old person, prophesy, say, this is what God says, the best things will be left till last. They always love to hear that, whether it's from God or not.